This call while I allow everyone to come in. My name is Sibulele Sibaka Nonganga, and I'm going to be the host today for this wonderful interactive session. I mean, I've been waiting for this one because it is such an important one. We are here to talk about capacity building of youth-led civil society organizations. Now, I must tell you, today we've got heavyweights. I mean, when they talk key stakeholders, the people on this webinar are the ones you want to have on speed dial when you are growing your organization as a youth-led civil society organization. Today we are here to talk about the building blocks. What does it take for you to start, run, build, and make sure your organization is sustainable, because that is what this is all about. So we are here to first talk about the fact that there are basic pillars that you need before you are able to start your organization, and then what civil society organization does not need a little bit of funding to get by. And we are here to talk about the ways and the avenues to make sure that you're able to access those opportunities. Like I said, my name is Sibulele Sibaka Nonganga, and I am going to be your host for the next hour. Good morning, South Africa. Good morning. And I hope everyone is excited for this conversation as much as I am. I'm not going to introduce all of my speakers right now. But what I do want to do first is I want to know where everyone is. So if you could, in the chat box, please tell me your name, your surname, where you are in South Africa, and if your organization is already registered, please tell us the name of your organization. Listen, this is the time to get your organization's name out there. You've got the right people on this webinar seeing your organization. If they're talking about Marketing 101, this is the time. Thank you so much, Sisonke Pelekazi Ntonela. We see you. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much from Lady Nala Art Drawing. You're interested. I love it. We are here to give you the information. Others are saying, thank you so much. Repalang is saying, thank you so much for this platform. I knew that this is going to be much, much needed. And as all of you are saying good morning and are joining in, I'm going to allow us to start the program because we don't have a lot of time. And to my speakers, to my panelists, yes, you are here to give information, but I also want us to give a little bit of time to the young people who are running these organizations to be able to ask you any questions directly. All right, so without wasting any time, I would love to introduce you all to Sis Lillian Mswane, who's from the Department of Social Development, and she heads up, she's the Deputy Director under the NPO Chief Directorate, which is responsible for all NPO capacity building. Then we also have Put Simon Penyane, who's a corporate education specialist at CIPC, and his role is to make sure that people understand what CIPC's services and products are. Now, I want to start with these two panelists because if you're going to start an NPO, right, you need one of these two entities to be able to register your NPO. So I want to start with the owners, of NPOs in the country. And that will be the Department of Social Development. Sis Lillian Mswane, I'd love to come over to you. Is Sis Lillian still here? Yes. I'd love to come over to you, Sis Lillian, and I'd love for you to please tell us a little bit about what are some of the first steps that young people looking to register their NPO need to do when coming to the Department of Social Development?
Good morning, Sbu, and good morning to all the panelists and everyone who has joined us in this webinar. My name is Lillian Mswane from Social Development, and the question that you asked, my dear, what the youth should know about when starting their NPOs, I think the most important thing is that whatever services that we want to render, we first have to look at the space that our NPO is going to be operating in. It's very important for organizations to know the regulatory frameworks within the space that they're operating in. One is that when I register as an organization, when I formalize my organization, under South African law, it can only be formalized in 3 entities, which is your trust, your nonprofit company, and your voluntary association. So it's important as an organization to look at how are we going to formalize this entity that we are starting. So if you want to register as a nonprofit company, obviously you would start with Mr. Fenyane. If you want to register as a voluntary association, you would go directly to DSD. So an organization needs to sit down and look at how are we going to formalize ourselves, and where should we go to? What type of documents are needed for us to formalize this organization that we are starting? Maybe later on, I will explain as to how you would formalize your organization when you register directly with us, the documents that are needed. But I think for starters is for us to sit down as an organization and look at how are we going to formalize this organization that we are starting. Thank you, Sissy.
Great. Thank you so much, Sis Lillian. And I want to go over to you, but Simon, right now around. For the longest time, we've always known that CIPC registers only businesses. Now we know that CIPC registers non-profit companies. Tell us the process and how did that come to be?
Good morning, colleagues, and then all our viewers. My name is Simon Fenyane from Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, CIPC. Yeah, the non-profit companies, they've been there, even in the old Act of 1973. They were referred to as Section 21 companies. And then when we introduced the New Companies Act of 2008, then they referred to as non-profit companies. Now, non-profit companies, for one to register as a non-profit companies, is actually divided or into 3 types. The first one is the non-profit companies with without members, but with a standard memorandum of incorporation. We call it short MOI. And then it's also available online that you can log on our website, that is www.cipc.co.za, to register for NPC without members with a standard MOI. And then it's only 125. Plus name reservation is 50 Rand. But in terms of the Companies Act, it is optional to reserve the name. If you don't reserve the name, what's going to happen that we'll allocate a registration number. Then the registration number becomes the name of the company, meaning that you can trade with that number. Then we have a second one. A second one is NPC, non-profit company, without members, but with a long form. Long form is the one where you can either amend it. MRI, we refer to the constitution of the company, where you can add or you can amend whatever that you want to amend. And then is without members, and then with a long form, and is 425 for registration. Plus name reservation. Obviously, if you add 50 rand, then it's gonna be 175. And then we have the third one. The third one is NPC with members, and then the one with members plus the long form, and then is also 425. But what is needed there? You need to have 3 directors, and then the requirements is to have 3 directors in order to register a non-profit company. To be 3 directors and 1 incorporator. So it means that if at least you have 3 directors, obviously you can appoint 1 director as an incorporator. So now these are some of the requirements to formalize non-profit companies. But to start with, you need to create what you call a customer code. A customer code is a reference that you use to transact with CIPC, because you cannot transact with CIPC without a customer code, especially if you register non-profit company online, especially with the e-services, because we have different platforms which we use to register non-profit companies and other entities within CIPC. So you need to create that customer codes. That's another requirement that we are looking at when you want to formalize a non-profit company. Of course, this information is available on our website. There are forms for, especially the first one is online, it's available online. The one with a standard form, you can do it online, and then the other one is manual, and then all these forms are also available on our website. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Put Simon. Now, before I go back to Sis Lillian, Put Simon, I want to put you on the spot. You said there are 3. Which one do you think is the most ideal? I want young people to walk away today from this session with tangibles. In your opinion, which one is the one that when they finish on this webinar, they must just go directly to that one to apply out of the 3?
Yes, thank you so much. I think they can go for NPC without members, with a standard form. Is available online. You can log online, and then within 1 day, and then obviously you will receive your registration certificate on your email. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm learning new things here every day. I didn't know that at CIPC you could register without members. This is a breakthrough. Thank you so much for that, Simon. Sis Lillian, to come back to you, what are the specifics that are needed from the Department of Social Development? In terms of what documentation is needed, how many members, do I even need members? What is the process at DSD?
Okay, the process for registration at DSD. I'll take you back to the type of legal entities. Né? We said it's a voluntary association. It's the NPC, as Abu Fenyane has said, and then it's a trust. Okay, so our requirement is that you fill in a standard form. We have a standard application form that organizations need to fill in. and then they submit their founding document. Remember, Butfanyana said the founding document for NPC is MOI, Memorandum of Incorporation. So they would submit an application form together with their MOI as an NPC. So for the trust, they would submit the application form together with their trust deed. So those are the documents that we need to register. Our registration takes 2 months according to the NPO Act. Once an organization is registered, you are issued with your certificate together with a stamped constitution.
And Sis Lillian, is there somewhere I can get a template or the framework of a constitution? I mean, some of us, we know that it's an important piece of our NPO registration, but some of us don't even know what should be in the constitution. Is there somewhere we can go to find the framework or the template of a constitution?
Yes. We do have a model constitution which is accessible on our website. You can go to www.npo.gov.za to register your NPO. You can do it online. You can get the documents there. You can also go to DSD, www.dsd.gov.za to get all our standard forms there and application forms.
Great. Thank you so much, Lillian and But Simon. Please don't leave. You're still part of this conversation. We are going to be back and forth. We're having an engagement, so please don't go anywhere. But I want to move on now. And I want to move on to Sis Nontsikelelo Makaula, who is an NYS Senior Manager at NYDA. Sis Nontsikelelo, why do you care? Why does the NYDA care about youth-led civil society organizations? Why? What importance do NPOs play? What important role do they play in society? Why should we be bothered?
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions, and greetings to all the colleagues that are joining us online and all the young people that are listening to us. What a very important question. I think for the longest time, in the country, we have been seeing the role of civil society changing the manner in which, service is brought, to people at local level. We have seen how they contribute into social, as it relates to social cohesion in communities. And that for us as a youth development, institution that is for development at local level, we see that as government, collectively in the private sector, we can't do this work alone. Hence, it is very much pivotal for us to empower, these NPOs. And how do we empower them? We empower them by ensuring that they are ready, to one, be able to competently apply for funding that is available, to have the capacity to run their NPOs as organizations that, know how to, write, proposals, manage their finances, and be able to account, for the work that they do. And as a result, as the NYDA, we then therefore said, as it is our responsibility, to mainstream, youth development across all sectors of society, we then said, because we would not have the financial muscle as the NYDA to directly, fund, these NPOs. We then therefore need to have everyone on the table to say, as the National Lottery Commission, you have money, that is directed towards the NPO sector. How can we come together with the NYDA and see how we help, in particular, youth-led organizations? Because there are many, and we need to give them that platform. as the Department of Social Development, custodian of or a department that is responsible for ensuring that social ills in society are attended to, by the very same, civil society sector, the legislative institutions that take care of our funds, your SARS, the NDA, which is really our sister department as it relates to, development or a civil society sector. How do we come together and assist each other with this big mandate? Then we then said, as the NYDA, let's put together some sort of a framework that deals with capacity building as it relates to the NPOs. We then said, let's look at financial management, leadership skills, business management, character building, proposal writing, enterprise development, a very important aspect because, one would ask, how does enterprise development relate to the NPO sector? They need to manage their finances in a way that generates some sort of cash flow for them to be able to do the work better, because they cannot, be dependent on DSD funding them year in, year out. They cannot be depending on NLC funding them year in, year out, as well as NDA. They need to be at a level where they can run on their own, with the business that they do. Volunteer management, because as you run an NPO, you need young people to volunteer in the organization, be responsible and be part of the change in society. So that's our focus as the NYDA, and that's why we feel this is very important. And at the center of it all, the NYDA focuses mostly on capacity building.
Thank you so much for that, Sis Nontsikelelo. And one thing we agree on is that young people need to treat their NPOs as a business, because as I often say, we are in the business of impact. And even institutions such as the National Lotteries Commission, whom I'm about to go to right next, will want to know in the application form, so what is your sustainability plan? Because even though they may give you funding, they want to know, what is your plan when we no longer give you this funding? So I want to go over right now to Sis Odaho Sengani, who is a communication specialist at the National Lotteries Commission. She has experience of over 10 years in the public sector, working primarily in change management, has run several PR initiatives. And I'm sure, Mesengane, you know exactly what is required for an organization to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk as well. Why is this important to the National Lotteries Commission? You are on mute.
I am on mute. Thank you, Singuli. Thank you. Good morning, everybody that's watching us live this morning. Thank you for giving us your time and lending us your ear. I would really say, before we go very far, NPOs, I look at as just an expression of communities' needs. Maybe in some instances, the term NPO might be intimidating for some. But what it really is communities coming together, identifying their needs, their desires, and expressing those by formalizing those structures. And that is really what we talk about when we say civil society coming together to build the country that they want. Nation building, South Africa is a young democracy, but I think it doesn't matter how old a country is. Nation building is continuous, and it can never be the sole responsibility of government. And this is where the NPO sector, civil society sector, advocacy groups come in. I want to pick up where you just left off to say, NPOs should treat themselves like businesses. This is very, very important. An organization like the National Lotteries Commission, we are well known for the impact of funding that we distribute within the NPO sector nationally, annually, and over the past 20 years. However, the needs always outweigh the availability of funding resources, which is why we encourage NPOs, we encourage all organizations to treat themselves as businesses. I think many fall into the trap that because they are not defined as profit-making entities, that it means that they can relax on the actual day-to-day running of those organizations. But very successful NPOs that we can look at that fly the flag very high and are often used in case studies. If one looks very closely, you will see that they really do treat themselves and treat their work as though they are generating revenue at the end of the day. And that is something that we would really encourage young people to look at. The National Lotteries Commission, beyond funding, we also do look at capacitating our beneficiaries through programs similar to those mentioned by Sis Nontsikelelo at the NYDA. We have capacity building programs for funded beneficiaries to strengthen them in terms of financial management, other areas such as project management and governance. But beyond that, there are other avenues within the National Lotteries Commission where we encourage NPOs to not have reliance on the funding that we give through the application process, but also to go out by themselves and register what we call Society of Fundraising Lotteries and find ways to raise funds outside of just applying to entities of government and waiting for feedback, but also to empower themselves, to upskill themselves, to go and take this toolkit and run and knock on doors and build their own fundraising schemes.
Great. Thank you so much, Sis Otaho. I think I really want to poke at everyone's speciality and their area today. I'm not leaving you until I know young people have got the nuggets they need. Back to you, Sis Otaho. Your area is communications. How important is it that our NPOs how important is communication in our NPOs? Because we are so glued and fixated on doing the work, right? On fixing the social ill, that sometimes we tend to neglect the communication around it. How important is how we communicate the work that we do in our NPOs?
Well, I think in any entity, it's important not just to have communication, but to also keep records. And that's what it boils down to. We communicate to share information. Yeah. Information really is what opens doors, but we also have a responsibility to keep records of that information so that we can pass it on. Many NPOs you'll find will be successful for a certain period of time, and once the directors or the leaders change, then there is a dip in productivity or in their effectiveness, simply because maybe there was not a transfer of knowledge and skills, or a transfer of record. And that's why capacity building, for instance, the reason that we're here today, is very important, because those are the skills that when we talk about communication, what it actually boils down to is how we run our business. We're in an age where technology is available, it's readily available. We are live on Facebook now, we've got our gadgets in our hands, and we might fall into the trap of believing that actually that means that we are communicating. But we also should be careful not to confuse technology and the use of technology with actual information sharing and information and record keeping. I think colleagues from DSD and the CIPC also spoke about, the forms that need to be completed and how they need to be kept. And that, in essence, is the kind of information that needs to be kept with integrity to make sure that organizations are sustainable in the long term.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Sis Lillian, I want to go back to you. We know that NPO directors can be a tricky situation, right? And I often get a lot of young people on my social media are saying to me, "Oh, Sibu, I'm so frustrated with my directors. They don't want to do anything. How do I work around this?" And so, Cislina, I want to ask you, number one, how many directors do I need to register at the Department of Social Development? And number two, in your opinion and your experience, what type of people do I ought to be looking for to join me on my journey of starting my NPO?
Okay. For registration with us, we need a minimum of 3 members. Ne? We call them members, but when it comes to CIPC, they call them directors. Okay, so the minimum must be 3. Okay, as to the type of people that you need, let's say your committee. It depends on, obviously, the services that the organization will be rendering. I do not want to, because I know a lot of people would say you need professionals to be in your board, people that will open doors for you, but you also cannot count out your mama who starts a crèche, who has the passion. And also those are the people that you need within your organization, people that will inspire you as an organization, open doors for you, So as to who sits in the board, it is important to look at what it is, what are the services that we are rendering. Get a good mixture of people. Obviously, you need people who will be able to when it comes to record keeping, people who have that experience, or people who your professionals, but keep your balance, keep your mix, do not forget and do not count out people who have clout within the community, Abo Mama Mfundisi. They are not professionals, but they've got clout within the community. So anyone can sit in the board, but it is important to have that mix. Let's talk about the young people. Young people, obviously, they've got the drive. They are knowledgeable, so so I don't think you would have the problem there. But also look at your mamas, your gogos, because we are young, we are passionate, we've got the drive, but we also need leya information yana ephuma kubantu abadala to help you, so keep your mix just to ensure ukuthi organization yenu has that balance.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sis Lillian. And I almost want to, I was about to move on, but then I see a question on here. This webinar is about the young people who are currently watching us. And I really want us to pay attention to what they're asking. And Tepi is asking, what is the difference to you, Sis Lillian? I think you'd be the best to answer this. And please, to all my panelists, if somebody also wants to chirp in, please, by all means. What is the difference between an NPO and an NGO?
Yeah, now that question. An NGO is an NPO. We usually it's a long example that we make, but I'm gonna try to be short. It's like when you get your driver's license, you've got your code A, your code B, your code C, and it doesn't matter whether you are driving a Polo Vivo, or you are driving a Haval, or you are driving a Toyota Corolla, it's your code A or your code B or your code whatever, that gives you the license to drive the roads. So with an NPO, you get your NPO certificate. You can be an NGO. So to answer that question, an NGO is an NPO, including an NPC is an NPO. Yes.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Lillian. And of course, continue to engage with the Department of Social Development. I know that they do have a frequently asked section under their website, excuse me, and this question is there. So please do go on there and get further information. I want to now go over to Butabiso Mamabolo, who is from the South African Revenue Services. He has a number of years experience as a tax specialist, but especially working in his area of passion with NPOs under the tax exemption unit, for various institutions. Butabiso, we've spoken this morning about the fact that NPOs need to have a sustainability plan. And a sustainability plan means they've got to make some element of money. My question is to you, are we allowed to do this under the South African law? The last thing we want to be doing is finding ourselves behind bars because we're making money for our organization so we can do more. Please enlighten us.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Sibu. NPOs or NPCs under the tax legislation have an obligation, firstly, to register as a taxpayer. Once they've registered as a taxpayer, they also we recommend that they apply for income tax exemption. So once they've applied for an exemption, this would allow that the receipts and all the income that have been received by the organization not to be subject to tax. So what would happen ideally is that if the NPC or the NPO has been established but has not applied for exemption, for income tax exemption, the receipts and accruals that they will get, such as the grants from the various institutions, would be subject to tax. So if the organization applies for income tax exemption, then it gets the opportunity that those receipts and accruals that it gets will not be subject to tax. So we are appealing that all the youngsters, as soon as the NPC or the NPO has been established, they must please approach our office and apply for income tax exemption. A typical misconception is that people have is that because the entities has been established for non-profit, it's exempt from tax. So that's a very false. As I said, it's a misconception. So if you haven't been formally approved by the commissioner as a PBO or a recreational club, depending on what you do, you are a normal taxpayer, and you have to pay tax, and you have to submit annual returns. Just on the income tax side. The second thing I want to touch on is that the NPO, if the NPO or the NPC has employees which it pays salaries, it will have an obligation to register for what we call pay-as-you-earn. So meaning the organization would register as an employer, and then every month it would have to deduct the pay-as-you-earn and pay over to SARS. So there might be VAT implication, and the VAT implication would arise where the NPO is involved in trading. So if, for instance, it has a business where it makes money, this is where the NPO, the organization, does not only sustain itself in the form of grant funding. So where it has a business activity, it might have to register for VAT as well. I hope I have addressed everything.
I'm slowly. We are going to get there. Thank you so much, Butabiso.
Okay.
I have another question. So you spoke about paying of salaries. What if my organization will only pay stipends?
Okay.
Petrol money and data money, but there's money moving from the bank account of the organization to individuals that are part of the organization.
Okay, there's two things now. If you're being reimbursed, now if I'm an employee of the organization and I went to Cape Town on a business trip, which I funded myself, and the organization reimburses me, there are no tax implications. Now, if the organization is giving me a stipend, now we have to establish how much is the stipend. If the organization, as an example, is giving me a stipend of 5,000, there are no pay-as-you-earn implication, meaning the organization will not have an obligation to deduct pay-as-you-earn. But if, on the other hand, I'm getting a stipend of 20,000 a month, the organization would have an obligation to register for pay-as-you-earn and withhold pay-as-you-earn on that stipend. So stipend is remuneration.
Got it. Now, my next question is, let's say, Sibu, an individual, I'm in business, right? And I see this incredible young person running a great organization, right? And I say, you know what? Bonus yam, birthday yam, I'm going to give you 20,000 Rand as a donation to the work that you are doing. Do I get some sort of tax benefit as a tax-paying member of society? What is then the relationship between the organization and myself? How must that organization present that donation to SARS? What needs to happen?
Okay. The first thing is, if you, Sibu, as an individual, you donate to the organization. Firstly, let's speak about the donation. An individual is allowed to make a donation to the value of 100,000 without incurring any tax obligation. That's under donation tax. So if you're making a donation to an organization that has already been approved by SARS as a tax-exempt organization and has also been approved under Section 18A. Section 18A is a deduction under the Income Tax Act, which allows the donor to get a deduction when they submit a return. So in your example, if you made a donation of 20,000 to an organization that has already been approved as a PBO and has an 18A certificate, the organization would provide you with an 18A receipts, which would entitle you to get a reduction on your tax. So the 20,000 would be used to reduce your tax that you have to pay in any year of assessment, in the specific year of assessment where you made the donation.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. But Stephen Ngwana, I want to bring you in here. With your experience in working in the community with community based organizations and young people, especially around this tax and compliance challenge, if I can call it, because it's quite a huge and intimidating matter. What have been some of the common challenges and issues that you find in communities where community-based organizations are concerned when it comes to this SARS issue? What are some of the common challenges that you are having to deal with on the ground?
What time now? Good morning, everyone, and the panelists and the viewers at home. I'm Stephen Ngwana. As the co-hoster introduced myself, I'm the director of the City Community Knowledge Center. Actually, I like to just talk about my journey of the organization. Yes. My journey of to starting the non-profit organization, it was very difficult when I started that journey of organization. But I can assure you today, the organization, we don't have any challenge. But what I like to say is just to encourage other NPOs who still want to start their organization, who still having some challenges of applying fundings, including the tax compliance status. I heard my colleagues there was mentioned about this tax exemption PPOs. Unfortunately, most of the NPOs are still struggling to start from the ground. Firstly, let me introduce my organization. As a manager of Lisedi, I've started to register my company in 2010. Till today, the organization is kickstarting and it is running. As we speak now, the organization, we have all 8 board members. And again, we have 78 staff across the province of Gauteng, Tshwane region. So as the organization, we've never sit down and complaining Yes, we try to align with the other organization, working together with them, sharing some ideas up until today. And I can announce that the CKC currently, as we speak, we've got some entities, of which is the businesses that it's form a part of the organization, of which is the first one is a water purification plant. Under our organization, we've got the electronics equipment shop where we place our young youth people at the workplace. We have a security company where we train our peoples for security training for free. We refer them to our also one of our entity of which is the security company. And again, we do have an consultant, accountant firm. It's aligned with the tax practitioner. Yes, we have some workers there also. And also we establish the college. We established a college of which we are doing a training and education accredited course, full qualification. It can be starting from skills program, qualifications, diplomas, degrees, accredited with 21 cities of South Africa. And also, we are accredited with the QCTO and registered with the Department of Higher Education. By saying this, I'm trying to say, I'm encouraging youth, even including people who are still want to run this journey of what do you call NPOs. NPOs is not all about if you have a certificate today, then we are done. Having a certificate is when the journey starts. You must start to look some avenue because of what we realize. Most of the organization they've just failed there to identify their objective. To have an NPO certificate, it does not give you just an what I can call it what. It's not maybe per se you are the already comply for receiving funds and all the stuff. You don't have an access. You still have a lot of work to do. You must know your objective. Then your objective is the one that is going to guide you with your mission and the vision so that it can lead you to your journey. But if you have some only that an NPO certificate, you won't go far with that. That's why I've mentioned earlier that NPOs, we encourage them to align with the other NPOs. Because from my journey, I was struggling. I was having some lot of challenges. I didn't know even how to register an NPO, even how to register a PBO, tax exemption. I struggle. So is when I started to study these things of accountant for my organization, not to run that accountant firm, just to help my organization. And also I've done these things of a tax practitioner, just to help my organization. Because of most of the time I was having a challenge. When I access the funders, I was having a lot of challenges. They will ask you some sort of financial statement. I don't know the financial statement. How is that the financial statement? What is it that? I end up go and learn about that financial statement, just a period of 3 years, having just a degree of that is where I end up being a qualified accountant. And again, I studied these things of a tax practitioner because of I was having a challenge. Most of the time, when you want to apply or to raise some funding, when you maybe approach some companies local, there is a lot of opportunities. NPO, it doesn't mean that if maybe you are looking for funding, you must go direct to NYDA or social development or NY, what do you call notary. No, there is a lot of opportunities. These are big companies that you can access there. But unfortunately, firstly, they will ask you the tax exemption registration. Where I end up starting to study these things of tax exemption. I didn't know about what is this tax exemption. But likely after I've completed my qualification, all of them, as we speak today, I don't have any problem of any funding.
Let me jump in right there, Mr. Ngwana. Oh my word. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I'm just sitting here thinking, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? I mean, Mr. Ngwana, you just make us all seem like we should just close shop and go redefine and find our purpose, because wow, you are absolutely incredible. And one of the things that I love that you just said is collaborate and partnerships are key if you're going to go a lot further. You know, you mentioned so many incredible things. And so on your behalf, I want to check if you are already funded by NLC and DSD, because if you are not, my goodness, at the end of this call, something must happen. That is my role, and I want to go straight to the owners of the money on this webinar. I want to go to you, to Ms. Odaho first, and I want to ask, what would it take for somebody like Stephen to access funding from the National Lottery?
Yeah, let me say like this. As I've mentioned that I don't have any challenge with the funders. I even sometimes chase away the funders.
Capacity. There's no capacity.
Yeah, let me tell you something and clarify. If maybe you know your story, you know what you want, you know your objective of the organization, there's no need to access each and every fund. Sometimes you select, I'm a selective organization of funding. Remember, I'm dealing with the community development, training computers, life skills, entrepreneurial training, security training, food production, agricultural production, food production, plant production. So if my maybe let's say funder is not aligned with the objective or the services that I'm rendering, we're really not even going to accept it. Because of, sometimes they will say to you, can't you help us to mobilize, maybe to deal with the health promotions? I'm not aligned with these things of health. Or sometimes they say to you, go and fight for a human right in our communities. Try to stop. For an example, let me say they've said, go and try to stop. Remember, NPO is a movement. Most of the organization, they take just an NPO like an entity or business. NPO is like a movement. You see, because of NPO is gone, it can open any doors for you. So
and on that note, Mr. Ngwana, I want to see what door can we open for you. I really want us to go to the National Lotteries Commission right now. Without interrupting you, I want the representative on the call. I want Ms. Sengani to tell us, what would a Stephen need to access fund? I mean, what more proof of evidence are you looking for, Ms. Sengani, for an organization like Stephen?
Let me
just 2 seconds, Stephen. I really want Ms. Sengani Odaho to answer this question. Just 2 seconds.
Thank you, Sibu. I echo you. I think when we say, wow, it's actually quite phenomenal what they have achieved with their NPO. And I think this is where we want to see NPOs reaching. You know, when he says, I'm chasing funders away, that is the point. I think that's the sweet spot of sustainability that we're talking about. At the National Lotteries Commission, as you may all know, the word gives it away. Our funding, our revenue source is the National Lottery. And from the portion of revenues that we get from the lottery, we distribute amongst 4 main sectors. These are charities, arts and culture, sport and recreation, and miscellaneous purposes. Now, we have two areas of funding. There's the proactive funding, which is what we use mainly to respond to issues like emergencies, like we saw with the KZN floods earlier this year, the fire at UCT last year, there were fires in Alexandra in around 2018. That's proactive funding. But where there's more focus is in our application-based funding. Now, we keep mentioning that, the demand far outweighs the supply. And for that reason, the NLC really had to go back and look at how we make sure that our funding has impact and is in line with the priorities of the nation and where the needs are in the country. So as a result, every year, we publish what we call focus areas for funding within each sector. These are based on research, looking at what the specific needs are in the country, what government's plans are, and then we try to respond to those by determining those focus areas. For example, in the charities sector, we have gender-based violence as a focus area. We have early childhood development, and we have protection of vulnerable groups. So any NPO or organization looking to come to apply for funding at the National Lotteries Commission would first look at which sector they fall into. So if you are organization X working in the ECD sector, you would fall into the charity sector. They would then look at the focus areas for that particular year within that sector and see if their particular needs are a focus to be funded for that year. And then they can come through to us and talk to us. Our doors are open. We have offices all across the nation, and we have client liaison officers that are on hand to explain even the most complex of funding issues, as well as our call center. But further to that, Sibu, when the Lotteries Act was amended in 2013, one of the things that up until that time had presented as a problem was the very stringent funding criteria. You find an organization or a school maybe needing funding for kits for sports, and find that the application requirements were quite stringent for that level of organization or for the amount that they needed. So the funds have now been split into categories where we have small grants, which are up to 500,000, medium grants up to 5 million, and then large grants, which has anything above 5 million rand. And for each category, there are different application criteria, which of course align with the amount that would be required. So for instance, in your large grant section, you need 2 years consecutive annual independently reviewed or audited financial statements. But that is not a requirement for a small grant, because we understand that those might be smaller organizations that might not even be, getting financial statements reviewed by auditors like that. But at its most basic, if you're coming to knock on our doors as the National Lotteries Commission, you need proof of your registration, and you need to download the forms from our website, and then you come to us and we will walk you through that. Now, if I'm talking to Ntatengwana specifically, I would say Ntatengwana, phone us or come and talk to us, or email us, because your organization looks like the prime candidate to talk to us about registering fundraising lotteries, so that you can continue on your drive of sustainability, and can help you to then set up within the confines of the Lotteries Act, a structure in which you can raise your own funds and continue to grow your organization, as phenomenal as it is.
Thank you so much, Otaho. And I want to ask, is the funding period open? Is it open, closed, the window? What's happening? Can we apply tomorrow, now?
Well, our applications typically open on the 1st of April. We have what we call an open call system. So we are open for applications until the budget is depleted. Once again, our revenue from the National Lottery would be a certain amount, and then it is split between the sectors, 47% to charities, 2% to miscellaneous, then you get 28% to arts and culture, and 23% to sport and recreation. Now, within those sectors, there are different program areas, and then the funding is split further around there. We receive a lot of applications. In earlier this month, we actually
Is it my network or is it Ms. Sengani's network?
Disappear.
Did she disappear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me move on right along, and I'll give her an opportunity. I'm just wary of time, but this funding question is a very important one. Sis Lillian, I want to come back. I want to go back to you. Funding at the Department of Social Development for organizations such as Mr. Ngwana's and others. How do we apply?
Okay. The National Office of DSD does not deal with funding.
Okay.
Funding is done at the provincial offices. So depending on the programs that Mr. Ngwana is dealing with, let's say if he had a crèche, then he would go to the provincial department of DSD that deals with ECD, and that's where funding will be provided. But as the national office, the NPO directorate in particular, we do not deal with funding. We only support NPOs with registration and also, with capacity building as we are doing.
Okay. Great. So I think what we've learned on this call is that the opportunities are there, and one of the things that I really loved about what Stephen said is that don't be narrow-minded. Don't just look at the typical funding institutions. There are so many institutions and even individuals who are really open to funding. Mavis is saying, I saw a notice that lot of funding is closed until end of August. Is this true? I think Ms. excuse me, Ms. Sengani did mention earlier on that the funding is open until the money runs out. And Ms. Sengani, I don't know if you want to reiterate that, perhaps?
Yes, thank you, Sibu. Apologies for the technical glitch. I was saying that earlier this month, in June, we announced that we will be temporarily suspending applications for funding for the period 1 to 31 August. 2022. This is for us just to rein in the horses. We've received thousands of applications already on the system. And during this period, an assessment will be done of the systems already received before we make an announcement again. But the intention is to reopen again on the 1st of September. So that is correct.
Okay, great. So Mavis, don't worry. Don't worry. It's temporarily closed so that they can make sure that they do a good job in assessing those that have already applied. And so it does open up again in September. I do want to go back to another question that we had around how do we register for a Section 18A. And Uputabiso did answer us, and he says, organizations must apply with SARS and get approval to issue Section 18A receipts. An application must be submitted. It's an EI-1 form, together with supporting documents must be submitted to SARS. We will share the application process. Putabi, so in closing, and I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to just wrap up. In closing, where can we find that application process?
It is on our website, but I will also share the link with you so we can share with all the youngsters attending the session.
Great. Any last words? As a tax practitioner, what do you want to make sure that all youth-led civil society organizations know about SARS? Because we are afraid of SARS.
We actually want to encourage them to please approach our offices. Those, especially your non-profit organization, we actually encourage that they make use of the exemptions which is available, because it actually adds it actually comes with other added benefits, such as when you acquire property, you don't pay transfer duty. So we actually encourage all the non-profit organization to apply for income tax exemption. If they have employees, they must also register for pay as you earn and do the monthly withholding. So on a regular basis, they must actually engage with our officers to check their tax compliance to ensure that all the tax affairs are in order.
Great. Thank you so much, Putabiso Mamabolo, tax specialist at SARS, really passionate about the NPO space. Thank you so much for your time today. Sis Lillian, what are your closing thoughts on the matter?
Okay. I think this was a very, very valuable platform for us to engage with the youth. I see time is actually short for us to cover so much, on what is needed. But just in closing, I just want to remind, especially the youth that are registered, that you need to submit your reports. We've been hammering on that, and we've been going around doing roadshows to allow NPOs to submit their reports before we go into deregistration. So people, please ensure that you submit your reports. We are still open for organizations that haven't submitted for years, that we can track back only for 3 years, because there are organizations that haven't reported for more than 4 or 5 years that they're registered. But please contact our office. We can go back so many years and allow you to submit your reports. And also, if organizations have never been funded within the reporting period, you still need to submit your report. We have forms that are accessible in our website, which you can fill in, that will stand in place of a report to state that during this financial year, we haven't been funded, we didn't receive anything, and that would be your report. So it's an annual, your narrative report and your financial report. If no financial report is there, we do have a form that you complete and you submit, and you are in good standing. So just to reiterate that to the youth, to please submit your report so that you are in good standing. And also, we do capacity building. So please, if there's another platform like this, you can contact us. And also, if you can phone our offices, we will give you dates when we are engaging with the sector, so that you are also, kept abreast. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I hope that we can have this engagement again sometime, so that we can speak with the youth. And then, thank you very much.
I definitely agree, Sis Lillian. We don't have enough time to talk about all the things that are required. But thank you so much for jumping on to this call. Sis Lillian, just one last question. Which email address do we use to submit our reports?
You can submit on the website. Ne? Remember, I gave you the website www.npo.gov.za. So you can submit your reports on the website.
Great. Thank you so much, Sis Lillian. That's Sis Lillian, Deputy Director at DSD, in the NPO Chief Directorate, responsible for capacity building of NPOs in South Africa. Thank you so much for your time. I want to now go over to Put Simon Penyane's closing comments. Put Simon, CIPC, what is the one thing you want youth organizations to know?
Thank you so much. My last comments is that I just want to remind all our customers to submit annual returns. And then the annual returns are not related to tax returns. Tax returns you submit at SARS, and then annual returns you submit at CIPC. And then it is compulsory for all our entities to file annual returns annually. And then if not, and then your company will be deregistered from our system. And then the last thing is I just want to say to our customers that we are active on social media. We are available 24 hours on Facebook. Our consultants are there. If you have any questions or anything that you want to know about CIPC, please go to CIPC Facebook, and then our consultants will be able to assist you. Or for more information, you can visit www.cipc.co.za. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Put Simon. Hey, this registration thing is a real thing, hey? So I really recommend that everyone does the right thing. Sis Nontsikelelo, over to you. What would be your final and closing comments around our session today?
What a very short session, right? I think we really need to decentralize this, to at local level so that young people can interact and benefit from sessions like this. And hence, as the NYDA, we will be doing that. So I'm encouraging all the youth-led, NPOs, in particular those that are part of our incubation program, to look out for this at a smaller scale, more interactive. Look out in our social media platforms, and on an individual basis, we'll share that information. Some exciting stuff for the NPO sector, to look forward to. But overall, I think that as the NYDA, we are more encouraged to say that young people should form those networks in the sector. We understand that from the time when we issued a call for proposals last year for the revitalized presidential youth service program, NPOs complain to say you're focusing on big NPOs, but we say go to those NPOs, go to NK, go to this big NPOs that are out there, Sports for Social Change, focusing on youth with disabilities, and engage them and partner with them. I mean, their network, since they started the program in March, is growing. So, I mean, they can take on as many NPOs under their wings as possible. So we encourage them to really form the networks, just, as Stephen encouraged. And that's the only way, for them to grow. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for to all, the partners for coming. And as we go to provinces, hopefully we'll keep the relations going and we'll work together.
Thank you, Sis Nontsikelelo, and your team for thinking and that this is really necessary and for making it happen. For those NPOs that are not part of the incubation program this year, when can they look forward to being a part of the incubation program? Does it open up again sometime?
So every year, we started now with the 100 NPOs, and fortunate enough, Dr. Bauer from NDA was part of the panel that actually selected the 100 NPOs. So we started with this 100, trying to hold their hand up until, next year, March. When it ends, obviously towards the end of the time, we'll send out another call to invite a new cohort of NPOs into the incubation program that will host them again for another year. So we look forward to grow, as an organization as well, taking lessons from this program this year, and hopefully next year it will be even bigger and better. So they must look out for the call out.
You heard it for yourselves on this webinar that this opportunity is going to be coming right around again around next year, March. Thank you so much, Sis Nontsikelelo, for your time and coming onto the call, and for you and your team at NYS just arranging and making sure that all of this happens. So thank you so much to you and the NYDA. I want to go now to Sis Odaho Sengani. Your closing comments, please.
Thank you, Sibu. Thank you once again to everyone on the panel. It has been very informative, even for us here as colleagues. I would like to encourage everybody watching to firstly follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, National Lotteries Commission, Instagram and Twitter, SA_NLC. Talk to us. Really, if our doors are not immediately open, our phone lines surely are up. Talk to us. share your ideas and share your frustrations. It's really only when we understand where the blockages are that we can be responsive and we can improve our service offering to you. I encourage young people to visit our website and in talking to us to come and understand the range of offerings from the National Lotteries Commission beyond just funding that we are most well known for. I'd also just like to say to all the NPOs present here, NPOs are really how we galvanize society into action. There's such a huge role of in other NPOs that also hold government to account. The infrastructure is there. It's really for you to take up the opportunities. And as you've seen in this session, all these organizations and programs that are there even for you for free to access to improve and capacitate yourselves. And just like Dr. Stephen has said, to build capacity within your groups as NPOs. The last one, I would also just like to put it out there for affiliations, networks of NPOs to invite us also as the National Lotteries Commission, where you're coming together. Wherever possible, we will send somebody to come and to speak to you and share in your own areas on the products and services outside of platforms such as this one. And thank you to the NYDA for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Odaho Sengani, who is at the National Lotteries Commission. Like I keep saying, I've never had all of these incredibly important institutions on one call. And just walk around with you everywhere I go, because really the wealth of information that was shared here today has just really been so incredibly valuable. I do want to divert quickly for like 3 minutes from my program, and because we've got Dr. Bauer here on this call, to just really chat to him and ask him about NDA and any grants that are available. I mean, I told you I'm here to take out as much information for young people to activate as soon as this webinar is finished. Dr. Bauer, are you able to come on, please, and tell us a little bit more about NDA and any grants that they have? Dr. Bauer, going once, twice. So to Dr. Bauer, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually inspired listening to all the presentations, but also the guidance that coming from the speakers on this panel. From the NDA side, we've got quite a number of opportunities. And obviously, I think this year is going to be better because we now been networking with the UN. We're seeing possible money coming in from that side. And we really want to make sure that we engage young people. Most of our projects and our fund has gone to people like me, and we definitely need young people. And we also have organizations where we need inspiration from young people. So the opportunities are there, and we are in all the provinces. And obviously, it's to link with the National Development Agency offices in the provinces. There is a relationship between ourselves and NYDA that can also be one of the vehicles through which young people can actually access us or contact us. But with the NYDA, we have a partnership. I think it comes to an end now. So we will just look into it and just make sure that we do provide the funding. But I'm excited, obviously. And actually, they've chosen the right person in you to lead this thing, because you've got that bum in you. It actually pushes us also to be part of it, but you did very well. Yeah. Otherwise, to all the other colleagues, thanks. And I'm looking forward to the next time. I think next time we will be in a position to indicate our programs and where the funding is.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Bauer. We are looking forward to that announcement. As young people, certainly, youth-led organizations are really energetic and they're gearing. They want to make a difference. And so, one of the things that I've noticed over the past couple of years is that young people often don't engage big institutions like these, because they come across as intimidating sometimes. And we think that this small idea that we have to make a difference in my small community is not going to be taken seriously, or is not going to be considered. And I think the beautiful thing about this webinar is that you've literally broken down those walls. And now all of a sudden, these big institutions, this tells us that there are human beings behind it, who look just like us, who, by the way, when they hear what amazing works Mr. Stephen Ngwana is doing, are equally inspired. Because I think when you all go to work, you go to work to hear stories like Mr. Ngwana's and what they are doing on the ground, because then it propels you to do more and be more at the role that you play in your work. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Bauer, and to all our panelists. Before I go to Mr. Ngwana's closing statements, Butabiso, did I give you an opportunity to close?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ngwana, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to tell us why you got on this journey and why you are not going to stop.
Yes. The reason is a challenge that I've just come across when I was growing from the rural. I was facing a lot of challenges in my life, so that's why I end up just thinking to come with an initiative that it can change my life. Firstly, I've just changed my life. After that, I've decided to, after I've realized that my life is already changed, is when I start to say, no, look, let me change the life of the young people, make them educated, access the jobs, opportunities, have some skills. So that's why even now, I'm still fighting to have more youth to participate in our programs. Still, I'm attracting more funders to come and invest. And again, thanks to a lottery, I did receive funding. I really appreciate for that. And also what you call a social development. Thank you very much. At least as we speak today, we are working on having at least almost 400 workers that we are going to participate in the agricultural sector to produce some food. You see, so this journey, we still have a long walk to go. So for now, I can encourage youth to associate with other organizations that are already grown. We open the doors for everyone, not because of we're already there, then we close the doors for other young people. No, we're still encouraging you to come forward, come and align with us. We started like you. We've never just grow and have it. And I will again, thanks for NYDA not funding me that time when I was starting this organization. If they funded me that time, I couldn't even be here today as we speak. So thank you very much for not helping me that time. But for now, thank you very much for helping me. I'm one of the people who are participating in the presidential NYS for almost 500 youth participating in the NYS, partnering with an NYDA. So I cannot name it. I've got a lot of funders, including even Canada, UK. So it's plain. We've got a lot of opportunities. So I said the youth, stand it up, aligned with other organizations who already grown and learn some other things. There's no any difficulties. Most of the time we said our government is failing us. We are the one who must hold our government for accountability, deliver the quality services. But for complaining, not do anything, you'll end up just growing without of getting anything. I said, come forward, work together with us. Don't close the door with anyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ngwana. Oh my word, we are led, we are in good hands, we are on the right track. I mean, Wow, Mr. Ngwana, you've been an inspiration this morning, and everyone is really excited with you about your journey, and you've inspired all of us, panelists included, and everyone that has been listening on this webinar. Thank you so much for your time. And really, I want to thank everyone who's joined us today online, and all our participants and all of your comments. I am inspired. The comments are coming in. Thank you to every single one of you for taking out the time today and sharing this session with us. I think it is very clear, as everyone has said, that hint, hint, we need a little bit more of this. Is that NYDA? Hello, NDA? Hello, everybody. We need more of these conversations. The need is there, and young people are hungry for these opportunities. In closing, I'd like you to say, you can't only change the world with ideas in your head, but with the conviction in your heart. You know, and I think when we listen to that Ngwana, he is the epitome of the conviction that is laid in our hearts as young people as we run and start these organizations. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for joining and for staying on the call. We truly, truly appreciate it. To the panelists and everyone joining, thank you so much. Have a fabulous Friday and an amazing weekend.
Thank you, Sibu. Thank you. Thank you very much.